Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the One Stump Short Podcast. My guest this week is the former Kent, Leicestershire and England wicket-keeper, now columnist for the cricket paper and coach of the Jamaica Tallawahs in the Caribbean Premier League. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Paul Nixon. Paul, hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks.
Thanks for joining me today, Paul. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to have you on, given that the England team have got a kind of weird mini controversy going on after they handed Sam Billings the gloves against Ireland in the recent one-day internationals. A surprise to a lot of people, given that Johnny Bairstow was in the squad and played, and that he's the Test wicket-keeper. Obviously, with Jos Buttler coming back in as well for the Champions Trophy. What's your take on that whole situation behind the stumps for England right now?
Well, it's nice that we're blessed with plenty of guys to take the role. Obviously, it's so important and crucial that the keeper can bat. And, Sam's done well. He's been a wanted man around the world, especially sort of IPL, T20. And I think it's just an opportunity for England just to have a look at somebody else to see if, how his keeping goes under a bit more pressure and scrutiny and his batting. So for me, obviously, Johnny's got to be very disappointed, bitterly disappointed, and rightly so, because you want ownership of the gloves. It's just England's timing, I think, of looking. Just telling people, listen, there's guys nipping at your heels, and it's somebody that we could be thinking about in the future. So, I think it's a blessing that we've got three keepers. The time to maybe look after somebody else, where it's not a hugely important game like an ICC World Cup game or whatever that may, that Champions Trophy, but it certainly is a nice testing game for someone else.
I mean, as you mentioned there, the games against Ireland were warm-up games, so it was a good opportunity maybe to give Sam Billings a little look. He's obviously been in the IPL, mixed fortunes. He had a couple of good starts, but didn't set the world alight as such, certainly not in the way that Ben Stokes has. But England have been very keen to try and keep a settled team. So they've stuck with people who've maybe had some rough patches of form. Yeah. They've wanted to keep that team heading into the Champions Trophy. Yeah. Do you think that's part of the reason that the Bairstow has missed out, just kind of full stop, even as a batsman who's been in good form this year, and they've stuck with Jos Buttler and the team they've got?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that Andrew Strauss had as a player, he had people believing in him and stick with him, which, Andy Flower did brilliantly. And I think Andrew really respected that. And I think since he's took over, certainly has tried to create that sense of calm, that sense of, we're with you for a while now, and that's where England have been slightly more successful in recent years. So, Johnny still played. He still played as a batsman, so I'm sure he would have done a bit of warm up with the gloves and keep himself ticking along. Sam's had great experience now in IPL. I think it's tough to go out there straight away and do well, but thankfully Ben Stokes has done that, which is great for Ben and good for English cricket. Shows his true worth. It's fine margins. Ben's got his bowling, which will help him settle in as well. But where Sam's, has been, just with his batting to start with, it's certainly, a bit more one-dimensional. So it's tough to stand out in a way. But amazing experience. Great for him to have that confidence that he knows if he can handle that environment with the screaming Indian fans, then anything else is a breeze. So it all bodes well for English cricket, and it's great that our lads are out there in the mixer under the scrutiny of the world's press and the big, getting paid a lot of money to play. There's expectations, and you have expectations for yourself to do well. So it's brilliant for the next few years.
You mentioned there, Paul, about the different conditions and the different pressures, certainly of the IPL, where Sam Billings and Jos Buttler have both been playing really solely as batsmen. And Delhi Daredevils didn't really use Sam behind the stumps. They preferred to go with Pant instead, and obviously the same for Jos Buttler in Mumbai. Is that perhaps a case from the IPL team's point of view, using a wicketkeeper who is more familiar with Indian conditions? Obviously, you played out there for Delhi in the ICL when that was still going. Yeah. I mean, is it a very different experience keeping in India to the county circuit?
No, not at all. I think it's an easier place to keep because it's a lot slower off the pitch, which creates more time for you as a keeper. And you're actually in the game a lot more because there's a lot more spinners and the ball's turning a lot more. So you feel like you're more in the game to the spinners than you are to the seamers. I think they're using them because these guys, our guys are very good fielders. Both of them are very good athletes. They've got great hands. They've got good arms away from keeping wicket, and I think it suits them well to use them as fielders.
It's an interesting point you make there, because I've heard people talk about Johnny Bairstow and his natural athleticism in the field and how good he is just generally in the field, not just with the gloves, but in general terms. Do you think that's another thing which has maybe changed a little bit with the wicket-keeping position, that players now are much more adaptable maybe to playing just as a regular fielder, for lack of a better term, rather than, in the old times, you probably wouldn't see Jack Russell maybe dancing about in cover.
I think it was probably from sort of Stewie onwards. Somebody, Alec was, a batter and also a fielder, and then he went to keep. And I think English keepers from then on really were, you look at Matt Pryor or myself and the guys, Warren Hegg, for instance. Those guys, they were good athletes. Even Jack was a good athlete, but the other guys were maybe a bit bigger, a bit stronger, a bit fitter as far as, upper body strength, good throws of the cricket ball, good athletic catches. So I think that a keeper generally is a more is a very good athlete compared to maybe in the past, where it's been a little bit more just focused singularly. There's so many guys around. There's been so many of the guys that have turned themselves into wicket keepers rather than just being an out and outright keeper from a 12 or 13-year-old. These have been good athletes who've maybe fielded and actually thought, you know what, I could actually get into the team because my keeping's, I'm a good athlete. I can turn myself to keeping. I think probably clubs have helped the development of some of those guys because of the dual role aspect. That rather than having a keeper that just is a keeper and doesn't get enough runs, I look back at somewhere like Warwickshire now. Keith Piper was a world-class wicket-keeper, but actually his batting probably wouldn't be up to par in the modern day's game. So, Keith Piper years ago was a world-class keeper and occasionally, came in with a bat, but not consistent enough for the modern-day game.
I mean, that's the big thing that a lot of people talk about now with wicket-keepers, and obviously you mentioned Alex Stewart there. Yourself, you had a lot of success in 2020 cricket, and you look at people now like Matt Pryor from the last generation, so to speak, but Butler, Bairstow, and the guys we've spoken about. Is it the case, do you feel that, or are you seeing, because we mentioned you in coaching, more batsmen who are, as you kind of alluded to, learning to keep wicket rather than wicket keepers who are learning to become batsmen or better batsmen now?
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing a lot more of that. And they're looking at their athletic prowess. They're looking at the guys that are good athletes who can, with a little bit of coaching and some good technique, can actually be keepers. And, I think that's something that there's fine margins between a good keeper and an exceptional international keeper. And that's the challenge that the coaches have got, is to pick the right guys that are going to, they're going to have minimal misses and, and catch, 98, 99% of all the catches, and that's what bowlers want, and that wins games.
I mean, Johnny Bairstow is maybe a good example of this. A guy who's worked really hard on his keeping over the past couple of years to improve his consistency in his ability behind the stumps, and he's talked quite openly about it on Sky Sports and things. The bits he's changed, or leading with his head, and so forth. How easy is it to take someone who is maybe not a natural keeper, for lack of a better term, and make them pro quality, international quality? How easy is it to help somebody make that step, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's relatively easy. It's about obviously you need techniques and understand timing and postures and hand positions, but also it's about the mental side of the game of expecting the ball, expecting the catch, expecting the nick, and and working on percentages where that nick's going to be, and getting yourself in that key position at the right time. And I see a little bit of improvement that needs in Johnny. Sam probably technically is as good as any of them, but certainly Johnny and Joss, I think, need a little bit more tweaking, a little bit more consistency in their positions as the batsman's nicking the ball.
Is that just something that comes with playing more, or is it something you can do with coaching? Because as we mentioned, obviously Jos Buttler has been playing in the Indian Premier League. It's great experience for him as a batsman in that atmosphere and the pressure, but obviously he hasn't been keeping. He hasn't played a lot of domestic cricket in England because of his international commitments. So at what point does he able to work on those skills behind the stumps?
Yeah, I think that can be coached quite a bit myself. I think you can coach that. It's about working with good coaches and every day trying to have some nicks and having a good a good batsman who can nick the ball in practice, using the various coaching aids that create that, whether it's a shower mat that's turned upside down or whether it's a catch it ramp, using the sort of modern technology that can help you get that sharpness and have that, create that sort of instinctive catch. And you can analyze that. You've got, a lot of videos worked now. A lot of the guys work, most of their nets and their practice sessions are all videoed. So it's just using all the tools that are available. And, it's something that, modern day keepers and modern day players use a lot. And I think it's really important.
And of course, with Paul Farbrace involved with the England setup as well, somebody who played the position and has been through the ringer a little bit as a professional player, that can only help to be able to pass on that experience to guys like Joss and Johnny, right?
Yeah, definitely. They've still got, they've got a keeping coach with Bruce French.
Of course.
So, for me, there's no excuse for it to be right, for it not to be right, and it has to be consistent. And it frustrates all of us keepers when we see a keeper dropping a catch, because especially wearing England colours, because you want England to do well and you want the guys to do well individually as well.
Maybe this leads into a little bit of what we've seen in the 2020 regime, and obviously we've just mentioned Bruce French and Paul Farbrace with specialist coaches being used more and more and more in the game. As I say, you see it in the 2020 arena. Obviously, you yourself are involved with Jamaica. Daniel Vittori's got some coaching roles around the world. How big of a difference does that make as well for these players who are going to the IPL or the CPL or even maybe coming to the 2020 Blast now, to work with people they wouldn't perhaps ordinarily get to work with and improve their skills by working with these other coaches?
Yeah, it helps massively, because I remember years ago having Alan Knott, who was the sort of England sort of coach and selector for the keepers. Knotty coming to work with you and watching you throughout the day. It was just like you've got this sort of, father figure and, what's the right word? Sort of
like a mentor type.
Like a mentor, yeah, absolutely, a mentor who just analyzes every small detail. And actually, you need that. You need to know every single thing about yourself. You as a keeper, your foot placement, your body positions, your hand positions, the pace of the pitch. You've got to know your mindset. You've got to have aggression to catch the ball, but your hands have got to be relaxed. There's all these key things that you've got to know. And when you've got those guys around you, with you all the time, they're consistently making you aware at the right times of what's good and what's bad, and they're asking questions all the time. They're challenging you, and that's only good for your growth. It creates a growth mindset, and it just builds your awareness to keep you consistent for the big pressure moments. And when the heat's on, you know where you are, and you understand your game and your mindset and your anxiety levels, etc., etc. And the more you can do that, and more you can immerse yourself in that, then there's good things going on.
Looking at the slightly broader cross-section of English domestic cricket right now, a lot of people talk about Ben Foakes as a possible England keeper in the future. Is there anybody else you've seen on the circuit who's really caught your eye?
Yeah, good question. I think Foakes is done well. He's had a few televised games, so it makes people aware of him. Surrey have always had good keeper batsmen. It's probably the best place. I think Surrey and Essex, and probably down at Taunton, are probably the three key places where, as a actually, and Nottinghamshire as well, where you've got absolutely fantastic cricket pitches to bat in the middle order and keep wicket on. You've got consistent bounce. You've got, it's a test ground to keep wicket on, and that helps. So, there's some good guys around. I felt there's young Bates. I felt for him because I think he's a really good keeper. Just his batting never really kicked on, which is a shame. It's an international cricket. I think most county keepers could actually keep wicket for England, because you're keeping wicket against the best bowlers on the best pitches generally, and it's the external pressures that can make you or break you. But it's the character of the guys. You've got to be strong character to have 3 lions on your chest. You need that steely belief and you want to do it. You want to go out there and you want to make a difference. You want to create change in the game, and you're the man to do it. And you've got the self-belief and resilience to do it. That's the important thing. And at the moment, Ben's doing it on TV, which only puts you in good stead. I like the young lad Burge, who did a TV game with Essex. He's kept wicket for Essex. Actually, was it? I can't remember now. Was it Essex or actually it could have been Sussex at Essex? Sorry. And he did quite well. He was at Loughborough University. Nice kid. He's got good ability. If I'm honest, I haven't seen a great deal of a lot of the keepers. I've been sort of out of the game, studying it day in, day out now for a couple of years. So I suppose Folkes, in a way, is probably just up towards the top of the pecking order.
I mean, is that the key thing? A lot of the sort of the professional keepers have got these strong fundamentals that you've talked about. There's room for improvement. The basic fundamentals are there, and the real thing that maybe stops someone from taking the next step, it's between the ears. Is it as simple as that sometimes?
I think it is. I really do. I think it's the England environment is every day is more pressure, and there's more expectation. Pressure is something you put on yourself. Ultimately, it doesn't probably exist. I mean, in sport, pressure is having 3 kids living in a 1-bedroom apartment, with no money. That's proper pressure. Playing cricket, you want to win and lose, but that's what happens in the game. But you put pressure on yourself. So it's the guys that can take the pressure off themselves and still perform and still be ultra consistent, doing their basics under the scrutiny of the media and the millions watching and the tens of thousands at the game. And you've got to be up for it. You've got to be up for the battle, and you've got to expect yourself, and you've got to know that you do well. And they're the guys having that extra little edge of self-belief are the guys that take it forward, definitely.
As we mentioned a couple of times, you've been working in the Caribbean Premier League with the Jamaica Tallawahs. You won the CPL last year. Likewise, in 2013, you were coach when they won the CPL then as well. What's your experience of the Caribbean Premier League been like, Paul?
It's been brilliant. The professionalism lifted every year. The quality of overseas professionals has lifted again every year from the inaugural tournament. I think it's great for West Indies cricket that youngsters are now wanting to play 2020 cricket again and play Test match cricket again. They're going to more back towards cricket, which is wonderful because they've got amazing athletes who hit the ball so far. They're big, strong lads who are incredible athletes. And the coaching's getting better out there. The key is what they've got to do now is just the governing body have just got to spend a little bit more money on their facilities. The net facilities probably aren't quite up to standard, and the pitches are getting better, but still need to improve. People want to see 180s, 190s, 200 scores, where a lot of the scores now are 120 to 145, 150. So it's crucial that they spend a little bit of money in their infrastructure. But overall, I'm pleased. It's getting away from Ireland's, trying to run things themselves and being a little bit selfish. It's now for the good of West Indian cricket, and all these world-class international stars are making a difference, and spreading the game and the knowledge of the game, and being mentors for these young local guys who can find themselves played a couple of first-class games, and all of a sudden they're facing world-class stars with 25,000 people watching live on TV. It's into the Dragon's Den, and that's crucial that you've got senior guys around you just to help you take that pressure off and understand the situation and work your processes and not get overawed by the whole thing.
I mean, I think you've alluded to a couple of interesting points there. Obviously, the political issues, shall we call it, that West Indian cricket has had in more recent years have been well documented. And despite some white ball success internationally in both the men's and women's game, people have feared for the future of West Indian cricket. But with the Caribbean Premier League doing so well and improving every year, as you said, and giving those young West Indian cricketers a chance to perform in that kind of pressure environment, do you think it's going to lead to an improvement for West Indian cricket overall over the next few years?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I think the ripple effect of that will definitely happen. I think we've seen that in county cricket in England. I think a lot of the players that come through now, from academies, they're learning all the shots, they're learning the trade much quicker than older pros like myself and my era did, where the old pros kept quiet. They didn't talk about the game unless they got a couple of pints down them in the local pub and they opened up. It was very guarded because people were worried about other people taking their places and they didn't want to give them that information, where nowadays it's all about a squad. It's all about sharing the knowledge individually and collectively. And these guys come in with a really much more rounded mindset and a more rounded game earlier in their careers. And I think 2020 has created a more exciting 4-day format that people believe they can chase any total down now, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the way that the game has moved. Obviously, a lot of people have talked this week about Darren Stevens because he had that fantastic innings for Kent, and he's they call it the wrong side of 40, so to speak, but he's still managing to perform to a very high level. And since your first class debut in 1989 and obviously moving to now, what's the biggest thing you've seen change within professional cricket, do you think?
Yeah, I think squads are certainly a lot more professional now in their focused preparation. I believe that the standard of bowling has gone slightly downhill with world-class bowlers not being available to play county cricket day in, day out. So batting on slightly flatter pitches more often is happening around the country now. So, it's a big. I think it becomes a big step up to go from county cricket into international cricket, because the standard of bowling is a lot different in international cricket than it is in county cricket.
I think we're coming close to the end, unfortunately, Paul. It's been great to have you on. I'm going to finish with one last question and ask if you could pass on one piece of advice to a young wicketkeeper out there, what would it be?
One piece of advice: expect the edge every single ball. Expect the edge. Standing back, just expect the edge, and just expect the edge and enjoy every minute.
Perfect. Paul, it's been brilliant to have you on. Thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure.